Something about the way Bradley Walsh said it landed differently. Not dramatic. Not bitter. Just honest. And somehow that honesty made the whole thing feel heavier than any big announcement ever could. He was talking about Blankety Blank. The show he brought back to life in 2020, the one that made him laugh harder than almost anything else in a studio. And now he's stepping away. Not forever, he hopes. But this year. Because the calendar simply will not stretch any further. "I just don't have the time," he told Radio Times. Which is sad because I've loved Blankety Blank. It's been one of my favorite shows, and it's been brilliant. You can almost hear the regret sitting underneath those words. Not the kind that needs a big speech. The quieter kind. The kind that arrives when someone realizes they cannot keep every plate spinning, no matter how much they enjoy the spinning. For 5 series, he made that panel of celebrities feel like an evening down the local. The cheeky asides, the sudden bursts of laughter, the way he could turn a slightly awkward blank into pure comedy gold. Blankety Blank under Bradley never felt forced. It felt like he was having as much fun as the people at home. And that energy is rare. Now the schedule has closed ranks. Gladiators. A Pratt Pack tour. Drama projects that need writing and filming. October and November, the months he would normally be in the Blankety Blank studio, are already full. There is no gap left to squeeze another series into. Some viewers online immediately felt the loss. Others wondered who might step into that chair if the show returns without him. A few simply said they would miss the particular brand of warmth he brought to it. Because Bradley never seemed like he was performing the role of host. He just seemed present. Fully in the room. That is harder to replace than people sometimes admit. What makes this moment linger is how ordinary the reason is. No scandal. No falling out. No grand statement about moving on to bigger things. Just a man looking at his diary and realizing something he loves has to wait. There is something quietly human in that. Most of us have had to make versions of the same choice, even if the stakes were smaller. You can sense he is not walking away lightly. The way he spoke about the show still carries affection. "It really makes me laugh. It's the most fun you can have in the studio." That is not the language of someone who has grown tired of a format. That is someone who still lights up at the thought of it, and is having to put the thought on hold. Television careers are often framed as permanent upward climbs or sudden exits. The reality is usually messier. Projects overlap. Opportunities arrive at the same time. And even the busiest, most popular presenters eventually discover that time is the one thing they cannot negotiate with. Bradley has spent years being one of the hardest working faces on British screens. The chase, dramas, comedy, live tours. At some point, the calendar stops saying yes to everything. There is also a wider feeling that sits underneath this. Blankety Blank itself has always been a show that thrives on personality. Terry Wogan made it his own. Later hosts brought different flavors. Bradley's version felt like a warm reunion with an old friend who still knew how to make you laugh. When a host who understands that chemistry steps back, even temporarily, the atmosphere of the show shifts before a single new episode has aired. Some audiences have already started wondering what the next chapter might look like. Others are simply holding on to the hope that maybe next year means exactly that. Bradley himself left the door open. He did not close it. He just admitted it cannot open this year. And perhaps that is why the conversation has stayed gentle rather than dramatic. Because people can feel the difference between a host who has fallen out of love with a show and one who is simply running out of hours in the day. The first creates distance. The second creates a kind of shared understanding. Watching someone as established as Bradley Walsh have to choose is a reminder that even the most familiar faces on television are still navigating the same limited resource the rest of us are. Time. Energy. The quiet calculation of what can realistically fit. Maybe what stays with people after hearing him talk is not the fact of the pause itself, but the tone in which he explained it. No excuses. No over-explaining. Just a clear-eyed recognition that loving something is not always enough to keep it in the schedule. And perhaps that is why moments like this continue to spark conversation long after the interview ends. Not because of controversy, but because they feel recognizable. A man who has made millions of people laugh suddenly having to say, with genuine sadness, that he simply cannot be in two places at once. What do you think when you hear him talk about it? Does it change how you feel about the show, or about the man who has carried it for the last few years? I would genuinely love to know what stayed with you after the news landed.